Welcome back. You are listening to the Mario Mokwenda Show, and we are also live on Facebook. If you have any comments, questions, queries, or suggestions, you can send them to us on WhatsApp. The number is 061 Alternatively, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. We are live on Facebook. So joining me on the line right now is Andeline Selverson, who is the founder of Munchkin. She's an international speaker as well as a parenting coach, author, and also a proud grandmother of 10. Good morning, Andeline.
12 now.
12, wow.
That's my 12th one is about to arrive in August. So I'm a very proud granny.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's so nice. Okay. So today we are talking about Granny the Spoiler, and you of all people ought to know about this as a proud grandmother of 12. Now, when do grandparents interfere when parenting, and when do they just want to spoil the grandkids?
Right. So it is a very interesting topic, and I have a chapter on that in my book as well, because there's so, when I go to Dubai 5 times a year when it's not COVID, and there's so many different cultures. So culturally, there's a difference, and there's different grandparents. So you get the grandparent, excuse me, you get the grandparent that's a live-in grandparent. Then you get the grandparent that is a pop-in grandparent. Then you get the grandparent that has to take over the parenting role because something has happened or the parents are working full-time. So, which one are we talking about? Because I believe that grandparents are a privilege. It's a privilege to have a grandparent around, but there needs to be boundaries in place.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about boundaries, how do we put those boundaries without offending the grandparents?
It's very important that if it's the mother's parents, then the mother speaks to the parents, and if it's the father's parents, then the father speaks to the grandparents. So that's an important point to remember. And of course, timing is of the utmost. Choose a good moment, take them out for coffee, take them out for a meal, and say, this is what we've decided. My spouse and I have decided that this is the way we would like to bring up our children. And therefore, we'd like you to respect that. You had your turn to do it, and now it's our turn to do what we feel is right for our children. Because you've got to remember that offending people, you're never going to keep everybody happy with your parenting. I mean, we say you get 10 doctors and you'll in a room and you'll have 11 different opinions. You'll never get everybody to agree on one thing. So you and your spouse have to agree and decide that this is the road that we're taking. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because your parents or parents-in-law might have an element of truth in what they're saying because they have had some experience, but it doesn't mean they know everything. They knew what they did with their children. And you know what? Let you in on a little secret. Grandparents will say, I remember you were potty trained at 9 months. You never threw a tantrum. Let me tell you something. They don't remember. I mean, your child's 2, right, Miriam? Do you remember in detail what happened the first 4 months of her life? You can't remember.
No, not exactly. I just know she used to cry a lot and vomit a lot.
There we go. And you don't remember everything that you tried to make that come right, okay? So how does a grandparent remember 30, 40 years ago what it was like to have you as a child? So they mean well. So you smile and nod and you listen to their words of wisdom and you chew on the meat and spit out the bones. You don't have to do what your parents say just because they're your parents. Those days are past because they're not your parents anymore. You're in a different relationship. They're now like mentors. In other words, a mentor is someone you respect, you go to for information, you draw from the information, and you take what's relevant for you for that time. So don't say, just because it's mother-in-law, I'm going to do nothing that she says. Listen and then take the wisdom out of that for your child, for your family. So if we're talking about grannies spoiling, now, when a grandparent comes once a month, one holiday a year, there are certain things that grannies are allowed to spoil them. because it's not a regular basis. It's not something that you're going to have on a daily basis, having grandparents interfere. So that's a different thing. When grandparents come, see the children so seldom, then you've got to change those boundaries a little bit and remember to tell your kids it's a special treat. Isn't that awesome? This is a treat. Like, for instance, you don't agree with, you don't lie with your child to fall asleep. But when Granny's there, she lies with your child to fall asleep. So you explain, it's a special treat when Granny's here. She gets to fall asleep with you. But Granny's going to go home and you're going to have to go back to your old rules. Okay? So treat Granny with respect. But if Granny's coming in and going, I'm going to sneak some sweets to them when your policy is no sweets before dinner, then boundaries need to be put down. And you need to be able to say, we've decided that it affects their behavior or it affects their health or they're intolerant to gluten or whatever. And we'd appreciate you respecting the rules of our house. And then you have to address that. You've got to speak up. Miriam, when we do have boundaries with people, it helps keep the relationship safe. In other words, having boundaries means saying no appropriately and saying yes appropriately. And when you do that, even with a friend, putting down boundaries in a respectful way, your friend respects you. So, but if you just always say yes, 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 okay, I'll help you, your friend doesn't know whether you mean it or not, and then you build up resentment because she's just saying yes to keep the peace. So that's not healthy boundaries. So we need healthy boundaries with grandparents. And I always recommend that before Granny comes to visit, that say it's the father's parents, that he sends an email and he says, in the past, we've had a little bit of an issue. This has caused a bit of friction, blah, blah, blah. This is how we're handling it at the moment. We would appreciate da, 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 da. So you lay out, you preempt what's going to happen, and then you address it. Now, to all the grannies out there, the message to the grannies out there is, I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters. So I'm a mother-in-law and I'm a mother. So as a mother-in-law to your son's husbands, it's a different relationship, because with your daughters, you can tell them almost what you want, but you've got to be careful with your daughter-in-laws, right? With your daughters-in-law, it's different. So my policy is speak when you're spoken to, zip it. So imagine having me as a mother-in-law. I mean, come on, Miriam. I mean, that's intimidating, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then, I can imagine your daughters-in-law would be like with their husbands. No,
when I'm there, I don't want them to be. Yeah. So I keep my mouth shut. I do not speak until I'm spoken to. So I smile and nod, and I respect their rules, their way of discipline. And you know what? They invite me back because I do that. And ultimately, that's what you want. You want to build relationship. You want to be able to see your children. So is it worth being right and insisting on your right way that you, in your opinion, is right, and break relationship? I don't find it's worth it. For me, I'd rather have a relationship with my daughters-in-law than be right. And you know what? When you have a relationship with them, they end up turning around and asking your advice then, that you then give very carefully. Very carefully. So like with my son and yeah, go ahead.
Is there something as a toxic grandparent? And if so, how do we identify them?
Yes, a toxic grandparent is one that interferes with the relationship of the parents. That's toxic. Or breaks the relationship of the parents with the children. And limited access, because you've got a new family unit, and that's what's important. It's not important anymore to have that strong bond with your parents. I know that culturally that's really difficult, but it's more important for you to realize that your spouse and your children is your new unit. It's your new family unit, and you've got to preserve that at all costs. So if it means having a difficult conversation with that toxic grandparent, you need to do that.
Mm-hmm. So I know grandparents always like to, well, to them it looks like they are helping, when they come like, oh, this is how we used to do it in our days, and this is how I used to do it, and your sister's kids never did that. And like, why are you doing this? I mean, can you let me have my moment?
Yeah,
Why do they
exactly
do
that.
that?
Because they feel that they know it all. It's like somebody that's got 5 children and somebody that's got 1 child, and the person with 1 child thinks they're an expert on everything because their child was blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
You don't have all the information. You just had your own children. I had 4 children. Let me tell you, I've learned more from the last 25 years of dealing with other people's children than what I did with my own children, because I did do some things wrong. I wasn't a perfect parent. So I'm not coming from the standpoint of teaching of, well, in my day, this is what we did. I'm learning all along the way. But grandparents have got their expertise from their limited experience of the children that they had. And we need to show respect for that because they did their best. I mean, every parent just does their best, but it doesn't mean it's what's best for another family. So the best advice I can give is to look at your mother-in-law and say, wow, that's really interesting. So did that work for you? Wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad that worked for you. And then it doesn't mean you have to do it, but just show respect that she was doing her best with the limited knowledge that she had, limited internet access. She did her best and what she thought was right for her children. So we can't judge that. But it doesn't mean you have to take it on just because it's mother or mother-in-law that said that.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so true. And also, the thing is that we are living in different eras, different centuries. I mean, what grandmother knew back then is not the same. And like you said, that the knowledge has evolved and there's so much more to learn. And the lists are endless and there's so many ways to do things differently. And if they consider it as wrong, it may not be wrong now. It was wrong back then. But these days, we are learning to do things different ways to be more effective. We're doing what works for our lives and our situations at the moment. I'd like to know, can grandparents ruin their grandchildren without knowing or noticing?
It depends how much access they have to them, because remember, the one that has the relationship is the one that has the biggest influence. So if you as a parent have a good relationship, and good relationship in my book, literally, is putting down boundaries and feeding their love tanks, filling their love tanks. If you don't have an equal amount of that, you're not building relationship with your child. You're either a tyrant or you're a walk in the park, walkover. So that's not building respect and relationship. But the one that has relationship with that child, a grandparent isn't easily going to break that away or influence the child too negatively unless the grandparent has a better relationship with the child and the parents have stepped back and thrown their arms up or given up parenting. Then yes, then the grandparent will have more influence on the child. But sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes the grandparent has got more wisdom or is doing a better job. So it's not a blanket answer here. It's the one that's got the wisdom and the relationship that will influence the children.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in
Now,
my situation,
yeah, go ahead.
In my situation, it's sort of like because my child and I live at home with my mom. She is the grandparent, but she's the friend to her, and I'm the parent. And then, well, obviously, how grandparents are, they like to give the child everything, and the parent is to step in and say, "No, mom, not that, not today, not right now." But yeah, no, it's working out well because my mother gives me a chance to be a parent to my child, and then when things are not going so well, then she takes over as the grandparent. But my child does look at her like a best friend, I'll say, and then she does look at me like a mother.
Well, remember that the one that disciplines is the one that builds that lasting relationship. So that friendship relationship that she has with her grandmother is fine because she doesn't need to discipline her. But if she was the primary caregiver, the only one disciplining her, and you got to put her to bed at night, then your child's not going to learn character traits like resilience and respect and obedience and those type of things. then you'd have to change those roles. Then she would have to become the main disciplinarian. But if you're the main disciplinarian and she's just having fun with grandma within your boundaries, within your acceptable rules at home, it's a perfect relationship. But let's say a child goes and visits at grandma's house, and grandma spoils them at her house, but you're not there. Remember that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So what happens there is none of your concern, and really it's not something that you can do anything about. So if you can't do anything about it, if it's not in your boundary to change, you're not going to be able to change it. So you have to accept it. But you can have a relationship with the grandparent that within these boundaries, please try and stay within these boundaries. So let's say an example is at Granny's house, they're allowed to jump on her couch, but at your house, they're not. That's okay. That's okay, because your child's going to learn, this is what I do there and this is what I do there. At Granny's house, I'm allowed to play with the china and break it, but at home, I'm not. That's okay. That's the same as saying, sometimes I'm allowed to play with mommy's phone, but sometimes I'm not. That's not an across-the-board rule. But if there's an across-the-board rule, like my child's intolerant to gluten, then Granny can't spoil by giving them gluten when they're there. You see the difference in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I know where the saying.
So I think it is important. Yeah.
Now I know where the saying, this is not your grandmother's house, comes from.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Kids can do whatever they want to when they go to Granny, and when they come home, well, they must know that, hey, whatever you did at Granny's house stays there, and when you come home, it's over. The fun is over, and this is home, and our rules are not the same as grandma's. But yeah.
But that's important, because they're building memories with grandma. They're building special memories, and often parents will say, oh, I remember at my granny's house, we used to do blah, blah, blah. I could dunk rusks in her coffee every morning. Something that I wasn't allowed to do at home. And that's a special memory. That's not damaging. But granny interfering with your discipline is damaging.
All right.
In front of the child.
So is there anything that we can read up on munchkins?
Yes, I think on the website there's actually a course. I have parenting courses, and one of the courses is called for grandparents. So it's not only for grandparents to listen to, it's actually good to listen to with the adults, the parents and the grandparents listen to together, to determine, like we were talking this morning, of what rules should we put down, what should we agree on, what do we agree to disagree on, what's allowed at Granny's house, what's allowed when Granny's around. So like, let's say basic respect. You don't allow your child to be rude to people, but when Granny arrives, your child's rude to Granny. Well, if you're in the room and you don't allow that as your policy or your house rules, then you don't allow it. Doesn't matter if Granny says, oh, it's okay, I don't mind. So you see, there's different things that apply in different places, and I go through all of that on the course for grandparents on my Munchkins shop.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your time once again, Andeline. And I hope that our grandparents and parents listening and watching can take heed of that advice. And most importantly, go and take that course on Munchkins, so that we can learn what type of parents we are and what type of grandparents we are, but to also put boundaries in place. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day. Andeline Silverson from Munchkins. If you are looking for any information regarding this topic, you can go to munchkins.co.za, munchkins.com, and get some more information. Andeline Silverson. who is an international speaker, author, and parenting coach. If you have any comments, questions, queries, or suggestions, send them to our WhatsApp line on 0617660355. Alternatively, you can send us your comments to our you can leave your comments in the comment section below. Oh, by the way, my bad, it's munchkins.me, not .com. My bad, munchkins.me, and you'll find all the information that you need over there. Thank you once again for your time, and Lean Selferson. Do stay with us. We will be back after the break.